Hey everybody, welcome back to AlphaBOLD's Crash Course series on customer insights journeys. In today's session, we'll be going over all about segments. So from creating a new segment, a few differences between contacts and leads, and then just dragging and dropping some of the tiles and some behaviors. So one thing I do want to note, I will not be going over the CSV upload in this video. That will be in the next video in this series. I wanted to make sure to isolate that one because it is a newer feature and a lot of our clients have a ton of questions on it. So I wanted to make sure that it had its own session just to clear up all of the questions in that video. But let's go ahead and get started. So let's go ahead and switch over into our segments table and let's select that new segment button at the top. Let's go ahead and give this a name, Rosie's segment. And then it's going to ask us if this is a contact related segment or a lead related segment. Now, I'm going to be honest, the most popular is contact because a lot of the time we are marketing to contact users who are already in the database as a contact. Now, you could create some leads segment in here, but we don't see that most often because a lot of the time they are already used across the system. But if you are using the leads table to market to users before they become contacts, you do need to make sure you have two separate segments. You cannot mix the two together. One of the most common questions we get is, can we create a segment on a account level segment? Unfortunately, this is not possible. However, we can pull account level information and filter off of account level information into a contact segment as long as they have that relationship. So if your contact record has a relationship with the account, we can filter based off of that information, but we cannot create a contact level, an account level segment, only contact or lead. So for today's session, we will be going over the contact level segment, but I just wanted to make sure to preface with that. The new Query Assist is also a great tool if you have some basic filtering or querying that you'd like to use. I will not be going over a lot of Query Assist or AI in this video today. However, it is helpful for just general templates. I do want to know that if you are looking for very, very specific details, like I need this to filter on this new custom field that I created and it has X as its data, so on. It may not always understand what you're trying to say, and the querying may not be the best, but it is good for overall templates. For today's session, I'm just going to go ahead and create. All right, now that we've created our segment, on this right-hand side, we see a lot of details. And so we are currently in this attributes tab. And basically what we're doing is we are filtering off of certain fields in the contact table. And I say contact table because that is the most popular. It doesn't always have to be the contact table. We do see related tables, which we'll get into in a moment. But a lot of the time, say we want to filter on if this contact, maybe their department is a specific value, they're in the marketing department, we would add that as a filter. Department is marketing, or maybe as long as department contains data, then we would have this as a filter. Maybe we want to filter based off of account information. So if they have either any account or if their account rating is greater than 3. So let's say add to, in this case, I do want to add it to a new group just so that it's separate, so that we can go through some of the filtering options here. But I'll do new group. And then it's going to give us this option. How do we want it to map back to the contact? Because if you remember from the beginning, I mentioned the contact needs to have a relationship with the account. We cannot just solely filter on account level information, right? So we want it to map back to the account. And what I like to tell my clients is I want the shortest path of resistance. I don't want it to go from account to a case to a lead, in terms of how it's in relation to this contact. I don't want it to have this huge path because it may go wrong somewhere, and not necessarily as in like the system goes wrong somewhere, but in terms of how I'm picturing the logic, I might have a flaw in my logic of how it's coming back into this path. I like to make sure that it is directly account to contact, no other table in between. And so we'll go ahead and hit next. And then it's going to give us a few options here. So this is basically asking us, okay, you want from account to contact, but how do we want to define that relationship? Because there are a lot of different lookup fields that may define that relationship. Now, if it's a custom table and you just have one lookup field, then it should be pretty easy. There would only be one option, but because we already have a few lookups in there, we want to define exactly how we are looking at this relationship. And so the first option here is company name and then in parentheses account. And this is actually a field that is on the contact level. On the contact level, there is a field named company name, and that is a lookup to an account. And that is actually what we typically want to set this as. We want to make sure that on the contact level, we are looking at the company name and whatever account is on there, that is what we're filtering by. Now, these other two are actually fields that are on the account. So, on the account, there is a field that is a lookup to the contact record, that is managing partner, or it is primary contact. That is on the account level. Now, we could do it on that if we want to set only the contacts that have their contact as the primary contact in an account. We would be able to do that in this case. However, most of the time, I do just want to pull all contacts, and if they have a relationship with any account, in this case, that company name account, then we would just set it up that way. So I'll go ahead and select that and set path. And so now we have these two groups, and we have this operation in the middle, and it defaults to and also. So how the way we're reading this is department is marketing, and also if their account rating is, and in this case we only have a default value, but if say we had like a numerical value 1 through 5, we can say if the department is marketing and their related accounts is default value, right? Now we can also set this to or. So maybe we're pulling in everyone who's in this group, or if they are in this group. So it would be these people plus these people, right? The and also was giving us they have to have this, and they also have to have this in order for them to be one group. And then this last option is but not. So for this to work, it would be does this group of people have this? They need to have this. This is a for sure requirement. And I want to make sure that they also do not have this. So it's kind of an exception. We want to make sure we're excluding people in this group. Now, let's go a little deeper. Now, maybe we want them to have a certain event registration that they registered for a particular event. Then we want to pull in event registration details and say we want to we have that as existing event in mind. I want to let's add this to group 1. And we'll go, yes, I want event registration directly into contact. And we'll do contact in this case, set by. And so this is just going to give us additional operations in this group. And if we keep going, it would keep giving this and. But then we can also switch that and into or here. So if we want to switch and to or, all of these operators in this group 1 would all switch into or. So I do want to, note on that piece. Now, if you have a custom table and you don't see it on here, you do need to make sure you are adding the table. So you would, see your selection of tables in here, add this new one next, and it may take some time to load. I would say give it about an hour or so and come back to this and continue working on it. I do want to make sure if you do not see your table in this drop down, one, maybe you just did it too fast and it has not loaded in. 2, you may need to make sure that it has global search enabled for it. If it does not have global search, it is not going to display on this list. On the behavioral side, this is more related to interactions that a user has taken on your marketing content. So maybe they clicked on an email link, or they opened an email, or they submitted a marketing form, or registered for an event or text message. All those interactions are stored on the customer insights journeys insights tables. Now, we did see that I added the event registration option here for us just as testing. That is because event registration information is actually stored as information in Dataverse for us already. So we do get that information on a table. However, things like email interactions we do not have in Dataverse. Those are on a separate insights tables that we actually don't always have access to unless we're doing like a Power BI report, but that's for a separate conversation. But say we wanted to add in a new filter based off of emails that were we have a link clicked, right? So maybe we had a couple buttons on an email and we want to track who clicked on this link, and we want to set a segment for them. We would add that link clicked option here, and we can choose from what email. So let's go ahead and add from one of our example emails, and let's add this here. We can add in a time frame. So how long ago was this? In this case, the last 28 days. But we can modify this to maybe at least two times in the last, let's do like 1 year, for example. So if they clicked on a link in any of my emails within the last year, they would be pulled into the segment. And that's pretty much it. All of the other behavioral segments would be the same. You would have your time frame and how often they have that behavior. And yeah, the last section is segment based. And so if you have a segment that's created, maybe it's like a general team segment where every time you do want to send an email, you have your general segment, with your basic query that you would typically have, but then also include a set of maybe 5 team members that you use pretty often, that you just want all of them to receive this message regardless of whether or not they actually exist in this group. Then maybe we would have like a team member segment and then automatically embed it using this segment. And I'd like to say it's a segment within a segment. So it's just we're reusing this set of users and just adding them so that they're in here because I want them to receive that email, right? All right, and the last thing I want to go over in here is the settings. So there's just a couple of things on here. In this case, refresh rate. So how often do we want this to refresh? If this is an automatic refresh, membership will refresh for us daily if the segment is not being used. If the segment is not being used, it will refresh once daily until you use it in a journey. Once it's used in a journey, it'll refresh as soon as someone comes in, but if you do not have it in a journey, it'll just refresh once a day, which is fine. A lot of our users don't necessarily need to have it refresh automatically in the system. If you do need to refresh it manually, you can go into a certain segment and refresh it that one time. But otherwise, it will just refresh daily. The other option is a static snapshot. So if we want this enabled, then as soon as we hit ready to use for this segment will only have that set of members from that initial start time. So, for example, if we have 30 members in this segment at the time of start, but we have attribute level details where if they have, in this case, department is marketing, and new users got that department is marketing attribute placed after the start date, if this snapshot, a static snapshot portion is selected, they will no longer plop into this segment. It is only going to have the original 30 people of the time we enabled the segment. If we wanted it to continue updating, then we would set automatic refresh and have it update, as users get added into the system or their attributes get updated. The next piece is time zone. So, what is the default time zone of this? There's actually not a lot that we need to manage in terms of time zone. If there is a default time zone in the system, then this would already be your default time zone. But a lot of the time, this doesn't necessarily matter in terms of refresh rate because it's just a matter of once it starts in the journey, then the journey would kind of take it from there. Custom form is a new feature that is actually not fully available yet at this time of the video, so we cannot go over this, but it is one of the things that I am looking forward to reviewing myself when it is available for us. Um, but yeah, I think that's pretty much what I wanted to go over during this session today. Like I said, if you are interested in learning about the CSV upload, I will be reviewing that in the next session. I just want to make sure that I am reviewing that one in a little more detail so that it's a little easier to make sense. And there is a lot of improvement. It is one of the newer features as well. If you have any more questions or want to learn more about segments, please message us at alphabold.com and our team is happy to help. If you would like to see more of these videos or a new series on maybe a different application, not necessarily marketing related, please send over your suggestions and we're happy to look into creating more of these videos as well. And yeah, thanks everybody and have a great day.